Hello, good afternoon. Today we finish our reading from the book of Genesis, chapters 46 to 50. About half an hour in total. We'll hear of the movement of Jacob down to Egypt, as well as the death of Jacob, who is now called Israel, of course, and the death of Joseph. And that'll be the end of the book of Genesis. And thank you for joining us in these readings of this very important book, the first book of the Bible. And we'll start now, about half an hour. Chapter 46 of Genesis. Israel set out with all that was his. When he arrived at Beersheba, he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. There God, speaking to Israel in a vision by night, called, "Jacob, Jacob." He answered, "Here I am." Then he said, "I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you a great nation. I will go down to Egypt with you, and I will also bring you back here after Joseph has closed your eyes." So Jacob departed from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel put their father and their wives and their children on the wagons that Pharaoh had sent to transport him. They took with them their livestock and the possessions they had acquired in the land of Canaan. So Jacob and all his descendants came to Egypt, his sons and his grandsons, his daughters and his granddaughters. All his descendants he took with him to Egypt. These are the names of the Israelites, Jacob and his children who came to Egypt. Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and the sons of Reuben, Hanak, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. The sons of Simeon, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, son of a Canaanite woman. The sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The sons of Judah, Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. But and Onan had died in the land of Canaan, and the sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamul. The sons of Issachar, Tola, Puah, Jashub, and Shimron. The sons of Zebulun, Sered, Elon, and Jaleel. These were the sons whom Leah bore to Jacob in Padan Aram, along with his daughter Dinah. 33 persons in all, sons and daughters. The sons of Gad, Zephon, Hagi, Shuni, Esbon, Eri, Arad, and Areli. The sons of Asher, Imnah, Ishva, Ishvi, and Beriah, with their sister Sarah. And the sons of Beriah, Heber and Malchiel. These are the children of Zilpah, whom Laban had given to his daughter Leah. These she bore to Jacob, 16 persons in all. The sons of Jacob's wife Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. In the land of Egypt, Joseph became the father of Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Asenath, daughter of Potipherah, priest of Heliopolis, bore to him. The sons of Benjamin, Bela, Becher, Ashbel, Gera, Naaman, Ahiram, Shufam, Hufam, and Ard. These are the sons whom Rachel bore to Jacob, 14 persons in all. The sons of Dan, Hushim. The sons of Naphtali, Jasiel, Guni, Jezer, and Shelah. These are the sons of Bilhah, whom Laban had given to his daughter Rachel. These she bore to Jacob, 7 persons in all. Jacob's people who came to Egypt, his direct descendants, not counting the wives of Jacob's sons, numbered 66 persons in all. Together with Joseph's sons, who were born to him in Egypt, 2 persons, all the people comprising the household of Jacob who had come to Egypt amounted to 70 persons in all. Israel had sent Judah ahead to Joseph so that he might meet him in Goshen. On his arrival in the region of Goshen, Joseph prepared his chariot and went up to meet his father Israel in Goshen. As soon as Israel made his appearance, Joseph threw his arms around him and wept a long time on his shoulder. And Israel said to Joseph, "At last I can die, now that I have seen for myself that you are still alive." Joseph then said to his brothers and his father's household, "I will go up and inform Pharaoh, telling him, 'My brothers and my father's household, whose home is in the land of Canaan, have come to me. The men are shepherds, having been owners of livestock, and they have brought with them their flocks and herds, as well as everything else they own. So when Pharaoh summons you and asks you what your occupation is, you must answer, 'We, your servants, like our ancestors, have been owners of livestock from our youth until now, in order that you may stay in the region of Goshen, since all shepherds are abhorrent to the Egyptians.' Joseph went and told Pharaoh, 'My father and my brothers have come from the land of Canaan with their flocks and herds and everything else they own, and they are now in the region of Goshen.' He then presented to Pharaoh 5 of his brothers whom he had selected from their full number. When Pharaoh asked them, 'What is your occupation?' they answered, 'We, your servants, like our ancestors, are shepherds. We have come,' they continued, 'in order to sojourn in this land, for there is no pasture for your servants' flocks, because the famine has been severe in the land of Canaan. So now please let your servants settle in the region of Goshen.' Pharaoh said to Joseph, 'Now that your father and your brothers have come to you, the land of Egypt is at your disposal. Settle your father and your brothers in the pick of the land. Let them settle in the region of Goshen, and if you know of capable men among them, put them in charge of my livestock.' Then Joseph brought his father Jacob and presented him to Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh asked Jacob, 'How many years have you lived?' Jacob replied, 'The years I have lived as a wayfarer amount to 130. Few and hard have been these years of my life, and they do not compare with the years that my ancestors lived as wayfarers.' Then Jacob blessed Pharaoh and withdrew from his presence. Joseph settled his father and brothers and gave them a holding in Egypt on the pick of the land in the region of Ramses, as Pharaoh had ordered. And Joseph provided food for his father and brothers and his father's whole household, down to the youngest. Since there was no food in all the land because of the extreme severity of the famine, and the lands of Egypt and Canaan were languishing from hunger, Joseph gathered in as payment for the grain that they were buying all the money that was to be found in Egypt and Canaan, and he put it in Pharaoh's house. When all the money in Egypt and Canaan was spent, all the Egyptians came to Joseph pleading, 'Give us food. Why should we perish in front of you? For our money is gone.' 'Give me your livestock if your money is gone,' replied Joseph, 'and I will give you food in return for your livestock.' So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and he gave them food in exchange for their horses, their flocks of sheep and herds of cattle, and their donkeys. Thus he supplied them with food in exchange for all their livestock in that year. That year ended, and they came to him in the next one and said, 'We cannot hide from my lord that with our money spent and our livestock made over to my lord, there is nothing left to put at my lord's disposal except our bodies and our land. Why should we and our land perish before your very eyes? Take us and our land in exchange for food, and we will become Pharaoh's slaves and our land his property. Only give us seed that we may survive and not perish, and that our land may not turn into a waste.' So Joseph acquired all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. Each of the Egyptians sold his field, since the famine weighed heavily upon them. Thus the land passed over to Pharaoh, and the people were reduced to slavery from one end of Egypt's territory to the other. Only the priests' land Joseph did not acquire, since the priests had a fixed allowance from Pharaoh and lived off the allowance. Pharaoh had granted them, and they did not have to sell their land. Joseph told the people, 'Now that I have acquired you and your land for Pharaoh, here is your seed for sowing the land. But when the harvest is in, you must give a fifth of it to Pharaoh, while you keep 4/5 as seed for your fields, and as food for your households and your households, and as food for your children.' 'You have saved our lives,' they answered. 'We have found favor with my lord. Now we will be Pharaoh's slaves.' Thus Joseph made it a statute for the land of Egypt, which is still in force, that a fifth of its produce should go to Pharaoh. Only the land of the priests did not pass over to Pharaoh. Thus Israel settled in the land of Egypt in the region of Goshen. There they acquired holdings, were fertile, and multiplied greatly. Jacob lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. The span of his life came to 147 years. When the time approached for Israel to die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, 'If it pleases you, put your hand under my thigh as a sign of your enduring fidelity to me. Do not bury me in Egypt. When I lie down with my ancestors, take me out of Egypt and bury me in their burial place.' 'I will do as you say,' he replied. But his father demanded, 'Swear it to me.' So Joseph swore to him. Then Israel bowed at the head of his bed. Sometime afterward, Joseph was informed, "Your father is failing." So he took along with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. When Jacob was told, "Your son Joseph has come to you," Israel rallied his strength and sat up in bed. Jacob then said to Joseph, "God Almighty appeared to me at Luz, in the land of Canaan, and blessing me, he said, 'I will make you fertile and multiply you and make you into an assembly of peoples, and I will give this land to your descendants after you as a permanent possession.' So now your two sons who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I joined you here shall be mine. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine as much as Reuben and Simeon are mine. Progeny born to you after them shall remain yours, but their heritage shall be recorded in the names of their brothers. I do this because when I was returning from Paddan, your mother Rachel died to my sorrow during the journey in Canaan, while we were still a short distance from Ephrath. And I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, now Bethlehem." When Israel saw Joseph's sons, he asked, "Who are these?" "They are my sons," Joseph answered his father, "whom God has given me here." "Bring them to me," said his father, "that I may bless them." Now Israel's eyes were dim from age, he could not see well. When Joseph brought his sons close to him, he kissed and embraced them. Then Israel said to Joseph, "I never expected to see your face again, and now God has allowed me to see your descendants as well." Joseph removed from them his father's knee and bowed down before him with his face to the ground. Then Joseph took the two, Ephraim with his right hand to Israel's left, and Manasseh with his left hand to Israel's right, and brought them up to him. But Israel, crossing his hands, put out his right hand and laid it on the head of Ephraim, although he was the younger, and his left hand on the head of Manasseh, although he was the firstborn. Then he blessed them with these words, "May the God in whose presence my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd from my birth to this day, the angel who has delivered me from all harm, bless these boys, that in them my name may be recalled, and the names of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and they may become teeming multitudes upon the earth." When Joseph saw that his father had laid his right hand on Ephraim's head, this seemed wrong to him, so he took hold of his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's, saying, "That is not right, father. The other one is the firstborn. Lay your right hand on his head." But his father refused. "I know it, son," he said. "I know. That one too shall become a great people, and he too shall be great. Nevertheless, his younger brother shall surpass him, and his descendants shall become a multitude of nations." So he blessed them that day and said, "By you shall the people of Israel pronounce blessing, saying, 'God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh.'" Thus he placed Ephraim before Manasseh. Then Israel said to Joseph, "I am about to die, but God will be with you and will restore you to the land of your ancestors. As for me, I give to you as to the one above his brothers, Shechem, which I captured from the Amorites with my sword and bow." Jacob called his sons and said, "Gather around that I may tell you what is to happen to you in days to come. Assemble and listen, sons of Jacob. Listen to Israel your father. You, Reuben, my firstborn, my strength and the first fruit of my vigor, excelling in rank and excelling in power, turbulent as water, you shall no longer excel. For you climbed into your father's bed and defiled my couch to my sorrow. Simeon and Levi, brothers indeed, weapons of violence are their knives. Let not my person enter their council, or my honor be joined with their company. For in their fury they killed men, at their whim they maimed oxen. Cursed be their fury so fierce, and their rage so cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob, disperse them throughout Israel. You, Judah, shall your brothers praise. Your hand on the neck of your enemies, the sons of your father shall bow down to you. Judah is a lion's cub. You have grown up on prey, my son. He crouches, lies down like a lion, like a lioness. Who would dare rouse him? The scepter shall never depart from Judah, or the mace from between his feet, until tribute comes to him, and he receives the people's obedience. He tethers his donkey to the vine, his donkey's foal to the choicest stem. In wine he washes his garments, his robe in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth are whiter than milk. Zebulun shall dwell by the seashore. He will be a haven for ships, and his flank shall rest on Sidon. Issachar is a raw-boned donkey, crouching between the saddlebags. When he saw how good a settled life was and how pleasant the land, he bent his shoulders to the burden and became a toiling serf. Dan shall achieve justice for his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Let Dan be a serpent by the roadside, a horned viper by the path, that bites the horse's heel, so that the rider tumbles backward. I long for your deliverance, O Lord. Gad shall be raided by raiders, but he shall raid at their heels. Asher's produce is rich, and he shall furnish delicacies for kings. Naphtali is a hind let loose, which brings forth lovely fawns. Joseph is a wild colt by spring, wild coats on a hillside. Harrying him and shooting, the archers opposed him, but his bow remained taut, and his arms were nimble. By the power of the mighty one of Jacob, because of the shepherd, the rock of Israel, the God of your father who helps you, God Almighty who blesses you, with the blessings of the heavens above, the blessings of the abyss that crouches below, the blessings of breasts and womb, the blessings of fresh grain and blossoms, the blessings of the everlasting mountains, the delights of the eternal hills. May they rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the prince among his brothers. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. Mornings he devours the prey, and evenings he distributes the spoils. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and that is what their father said about them as he blessed them. To each he gave a suitable blessing. Then he gave them this charge: since I am about to be gathered to my people, bury me with my ancestors in the cave that lies in the field of Ephron the Hittite, the cave in the field of Machpelah, facing on Mamre, in the land of Canaan, the field that Abraham bought from Ephron the Hittite for a burial ground. There Abraham and his wife Sarah are buried, and so are Isaac and his wife Rebekah. And there too I buried Leah, and the field and the cave in it that had been purchased from the Hittites. When Jacob had finished giving these instructions to his sons, he withdrew. He drew his feet into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. Joseph flung himself upon his father and wept over him as he kissed him. Then Joseph ordered the physicians in his service to embalm his father. When the physicians embalmed Israel, they spent 40 days at it, for that is the full period of embalming. And the Egyptians mourned him for 70 days. When the period of mourning was over, Joseph spoke to Pharaoh's household. If you please, appeal to Pharaoh, saying, my father made me swear, I am dying. Bury me in my grave that I prepared for myself in the land of Canaan. So now let me go up to bury my father. Then I will come back. Pharaoh replied, go and bury your father as he made you promise on oath. So Joseph went up to bury his father. And with him went all of Pharaoh's officials, who were senior members of his household, and all the other elders of the land of Egypt, as well as Joseph's whole household, his brothers, and his father's household. Only their children and their flocks and herds were left in the region of Goshen. Chariots too and horsemen went up with him. It was a very imposing retinue. When they arrived at Goren Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, they held there a very great and solemn memorial service. And Joseph observed 7 days of mourning for his father. When the Canaanites who inhabited the land saw the mourning at Goren Atad, they said, this is a solemn funeral on the part of the Egyptians. That is why the place was named Abel Mizraim. It is beyond the Jordan. Thus Jacob's sons did for him as he had instructed them. They carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave in the field of Machpelah, facing on Mamre, the field that Abraham had bought for a burial ground from Ephron the Hittite. After Joseph had buried his father, he returned to Egypt, together with his brothers and all who had gone up with him for the burial of his father. Now that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers became fearful and thought, Suppose Joseph has been nursing a grudge against us, and now most certainly will pay us back in full for all the wrong we did to him." So they sent to Joseph and said, "Before your father died, he gave us these instructions. Thus you shall say to Joseph, 'Please forgive the criminal wrongdoing of your brothers who treated you harmfully. So now please forgive the crime that we, the servants of the God of your father, committed.'" When they said this to him, Joseph broke into tears. Then his brothers also proceeded to fling themselves down before him and said, "We are your slaves." But Joseph replied to them, "Do not fear. Can I take the place of God? Even though you meant to harm me, God meant it for good, to achieve this present end, the survival of many people. So now do not fear. I will provide for you and for your children." By thus speaking kindly to them, Joseph reassured them. Joseph remained in Egypt together with his father's household. He lived 110 years. He saw Ephraim's children to the third generation, and the children of Manasseh's son Machir, who were also born to Joseph on Joseph's knees. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am about to die. God will surely take care of you and lead you up from this land to the land that he promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." Then putting the sons of Israel under oath, he continued, "When God thus takes care of you, you must bring my bones up from this place." Joseph died at the age of 110. He was embalmed and laid to rest in a coffin in Egypt. Thank you for sharing the book of Genesis with me. I hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to seeing you again. Bye.